Alright, so let's start with 1, and then we'll just go in order. For number 1, we had to solve for h. This is going back to the very first unit we did, where we're solving literal equations. So if we have to get h by itself, we need to get rid of pi and r squared. All of these things are multiplying, so if I divide everything at the same time, those would get rid of it by h. So we have v over pi r squared equals h. And that would be our final answer. Questions on that one? For translate, this is translate and solve. So we have to put it from words to math and then solve it. So the quotient means we're dividing. Of a number is some variable. Pick whatever variable you want. So let's say x. So the quotient of a number more than 1, so we're adding 1. The and 3 is telling us we're dividing by that 3. And then is 5 is equal to 5 would be our equation. So that is it translated into math. And then to solve this, you'd have to get rid of the 3, so multiply both sides by 3. And then get rid of the 1 by subtracting on both sides. So 14 would be our answer when we solve. Questions on that one? For number 3, we are evaluating substituting numbers into this expression. We have negative y squared is negative 12 minus 3 times x, which is negative 5 over 6, times negative 12. If you wanted to, you could put this on your calculator all at the same time. If you wanted to do it separately, you could also do that. So let's see. This would be 144, but there was already a negative in front. Minus, let's say I multiply these two first and then I multiply by 3. I don't know what that is. So negative 10. Oh, they were both negative, so positive 10. So negative 144 minus 30 would be negative 170. So just to show you what that would look like if we put everything in at the same time, negative 12 squared minus 30 times negative 5 over 6 times negative 12. So either way, doing them each individually or putting it all in, as long as you got the same answer, you're good. Right. Questions about that one? So before we get into what we're going to get into today, everyone look at your course calendar. Make sure you keep track of the dates. Notice that for each Friday that we have left in school, there will be Khan Academy quizzes due to include the last one. I know some of you may be going, leaving that day or that week. So I will send out a reminder as I do each Friday. If you don't see that, make sure you get it done at some point. Also notice that your test will be that last week. So if you happen to leave early for winter break, you just need to come back ready to take that test as soon as possible so that your grade's not, it's not hurting your grade for too long. But I'll probably put those in like that following weekend. Probably not send out progress reports until later, but just keep that in mind. And one of the graphing linear inequalities, Khan Academy, will be pushed back to the 16th because I didn't want 4 due next Friday. So there'll be 1 due this week, 3 due next week, and 2 due the last week. So just keep that in mind. All right, any questions about that? This unit is on inequalities. Most of this stuff you should have seen before, either in Algebra 1, maybe in geometry, but I doubt it, or before that. So some of this should definitely look familiar. Some of it will be new. So everyone should have notes that look like this. And then we're going to start just by talking about some of the rules. You may remember these rules. You may not, and that's okay. When we are graphing inequalities, we have to use an open circle for less than or greater than signs, and a closed circle for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to signs. So if we had an example like number 1 where we had already solved it and we got to the end, we have x is less than 3. That's going to be an open circle at 3 going to the left. For the most part, in general, I can say that the direction the arrow is pointing is going to be the direction you graph your line, but sometimes that's not the case. Like if this was written like this instead. They say the same thing, but the arrow is pointing in the opposite way. If it's written like this, you have to read it backwards. Start from the right to left instead of left to right. X is less than 3. Still says that, just backwards. So we would still graph it the same way. If you're not sure though, if it's written like this, you could always ask, if I start to look at some of these numbers, like is 2 less than 3, is 0 less than 3, so on and so forth, the answer to that is yes, that's the direction we're going to graph it. If I was looking at 5, 8, 10, are those numbers less than 3? No, so I wouldn't graph it that way. For 3, this would be a closed circle at 7, but now going to the right. So we're going to be practicing graphing as well as writing. So now these are switched. Now they are graphed, and we have to write the inequality. So for number 5, what would that inequality be? Here. X is less than -2. Because it's an open circle, it has to be less than or greater than. Because it's going to the left, it has to be less than, and it's at -2. What would 6 be? You're really close. Because it's closed, it's going to be a greater than or equal to. So x is greater than or equal to 4. questions about that so far? One more rule. You must switch the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. So an example of that, I'm going to write this off to the side. If I had negative 2x is greater than 4, and I were solving this, I would have to divide both sides by negative 2. And the rule says because I'm dividing by a negative number, the sign is going to switch directions. Always. But that's only if you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number. If this were switched, and let's say this was 2x is greater than negative 4 instead, and when I divide, the number I'm dividing by is not negative, then the sign would not switch. It would stay the same. So that's going to be the biggest mistake you may or may not make, making sure that you switch the sign when necessary and not when unnecessary. When we get back from lunch, we'll actually solve a problem so you can see all of this put together. Okay, I don't know what happened to this. So let's do number 9. So you're going to solve the inequality like a normal equation, except it's an inequality. So we have to keep the sign. Don't change it to an equals. You're still trying to get x or whatever the variable is by itself, so all of those things are still the same. So for this, we would get rid of the 2 first by subtracting. I tried to make this smaller. It's not wanting to do that. And then divide both sides by 3. So in this case, because we're not dividing by a negative number, the sign is not going to change. You have a blank number line. You're going to kind of make your own. I would say put this number in the middle and just branch out from there. So negative 1, 0, 1, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine, as long as the number you need is there. So negative 2 has to be there somewhere. It also doesn't have to count by 1s. You can skip, count by 2s, 5s, 10s. It doesn't matter. This would be an open circle going to the left. Do we have any questions about that one? Okay. So we're going to skip to the next page. So after you finish writing this down, go ahead to the next page. going to use, those of you moving on to Algebra 2, you'll see this used a lot, so it's good practice to see it now and then again later. Interval notation is a different way to express the inequality. So the answer we got at the end was like our inequality answer. Now we're going to put that in a different format. So you need to know these things. Parentheses are for things that are not included, or when we would use an open circle, or if you have strictly less than, strictly greater than. Brackets are for included, or for when you would use a closed circle, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. But if we use infinity or negative infinity, it's always parentheses no matter what. That says parentheses, I just can't change the thick. Well, I might be able to actually. I'm using the mouse. Until it decides to change again. Mouse, where did you go? Okay, so we're going to skip around and start at number 2. So solve it like normal. Here we would distribute first. So x minus 3x minus 6 is greater than 4. From there, what could we do? Sure. Allison? Come on. Okay, is that what you were trying to say? Got it. So remember when you're combining like terms, you do whatever it says. So x minus 3x. And then continue to solve for x. Get rid of the 6 by adding it to the other side. And then divide both sides by -2. Since I'm dividing by, a negative, would the sign change direction? Yes. So this would be x is less than -5. So then we would graph this, just like we did before. My numbers are a little off. This would be an open or a closed circle. Open. At -5, going to the left. The interval notation, we look at how we graphed it, and we're looking left to right. So if I'm looking at this, from left to right, this is the arrow that keeps going to the left, which means it's going to keep going backwards towards negative infinity. It doesn't stop. So that's where this would start. So because it's infinity, we're going to use a parenthesis. And then we look at where does it end. So it keeps going until it ends at 5, -5. And because this is open, we would use a parenthesis. That would be how we write our interval notation. 11 is negative infinity. So sometimes I like to turn my paper so it looks better. Right, questions about that one? So you'll need to be able to solve them and graph them and then put the interval notation. We're going to practice a couple more. We're looking at this arrow and seeing where does it start. So if this kept going to the left, where does it start? That's where it ends, left to right. If I kept going to the left, it starts all the way at negative infinity. Yeah. Great. Let's do 4. So with 4, what would we do first? distribute. So we have negative 8x plus 8 minus x is less than or equal to negative 28. And then combine like terms. So the negative 8x to negative x gives us negative 9x. Then we can start solving for x. Get rid of your 8. Subtract it to the other side. If you need more space than this box, there is scrap paper back here. I'm just running out of space because I can't change the thickness of the pen. So if we divide by negative 9, does the sign stay the same or change? Changes direction. So x is now greater than or equal to positive 4. So we would graph that on our number line. This would be an open or closed circle. Closed at 4, going which direction? To the right. Right. For our interval notation, where does this one start? Reading left to right. At 4. Because it's closed, that's going to be a bracket. Now, if we keep looking at it, where does it end? Infinity. It doesn't. It keeps going towards positive infinity. So that's going to be a parenthesis. Anytime we use infinity or negative infinity, always parentheses.
So definitely double check your inequality symbol and make sure that you have the infinities. Sometimes you might get that one combo.
Do we have any questions on that one? All right, move on to the next page. Alright, we're going to do one more of these, and then any others you guys want to see, go over and have questions about. So look at number 5. Here we have variables on both sides. This is very similar to when we were solving equations with variables on both sides. We still need to get all the variables on one side, constant on the other. How you do that does not matter. So let's say I want to get rid of this negative and move it to the other side. I'm going to add 2x. If I want to do the other step simultaneously at the same time, I can do that. Get rid of the 1 by subtracting it to the other side. So that way we have 8x is less than 8. Divide both sides by 8. Would the sign stay the same or change? It would stay the same because we did not divide by a negative. And then we could graph this. So this would be an open circle going to the left. Looking at how this is graphed, where would this one start? Negative infinity. So parentheses, negative infinity. Where does this end? At 1. And would that be a parenthesis or a bracket? Parentheses, because it's open. So sometimes you'll have 2 parentheses, sometimes you'll have parenthesis, bracket, bracket, parenthesis. It depends on the direction. Do we have any questions on that one? Besides the interval notation, because that part is newish. Do we somewhat remember doing this before? Yes. Yes. Let's go. All right, look through the remaining problems on this page, the ones from the last 2 pages, the very last page. Find any questions you want to see, go over, have questions about, maybe not sure where to start, it looks challenging, anything like that.
Go to number 9 on that page. On that.
Mariah. On the back page. I'm just going to circle it so I remember to go back to it. Bless you. Any others? 7 on this page or the other one? The one we were just on? This one? This one? Yeah. 10 on this page or the very last page? Okay. Any others? Okay. We're going to start on this page and then go to the ones on the very last page. So starting with number 7 here. There's a number right after the negative. What is that number? 1. So when you distribute, make sure you're distributing the 1, not the 3. The negative 1, not the 3. So 3 minus 2x plus 7, be careful with your negatives, is less than or equal to 34 minus 6x. Combine your like terms on the same side. The 3 and the 7, do whatever it says. 3 plus 7. Not that though. Cool. It was for like 2 seconds. Alright, 10 minus 2x is less than or equal to 34 minus 6x. Pick and choose what you want to move. Doesn't matter which. So let's say I want to get rid of this 6x by moving it. And I want to move the 10 over. So I would subtract it. So we would have 4x is less than or equal to 24. And then we would divide both sides by 4. I'm going to rewrite this over here. So x would be less than or equal to 6. The sign would not change. Draw that on your number line. This would be open or closed. Closed. Going to the left. Where would this start? Reading left to right. Negative infinity. So start off with negative infinity with parentheses. Where would this stop or end?
Six.
6. And would that be a bracket or a parenthesis? So negative infinity with a parenthesis, 6 with a bracket. Questions on that one? Allison. Infinity or negative infinity is always parentheses, no matter what. And then because this one is closed, this would be a bracket. It shows that it's included. Like, all of these answers x is less than or equal to 6 and negative infinity to 6, says that your solutions are all of those things. It could include 6. It could be anywhere in between. It could be anything in that. So that's really what it's telling you. Right. Number 9. You have 2 things to distribute on both sides. Make sure you do them both. So that we have 5x minus 3x minus 18 is greater than or equal to 8 minus x plus 7. Double check your math. Double check your signs. Combine like terms on the same side. So here we have 5x and 3x, negative 3x. Here we have 8 and 7. And then move. So we can add x to the left and add 18 to the right. So we have 3x is greater than or equal to 33. Divide both sides by 3. So the x is greater than or equal to 11. The sign would not change. We're not dividing by a negative. Make your number line. This would be a closed circle going to the right. Where would this start? Looking at your number line, where would this start? 11. Would that be a parenthesis or a bracket? Bracket. And then where does this stop? Where does this end? Infinity. And that would be a parenthesis. Questions on that one? And then number 10. Again, you have 2 things you have to distribute. So we have negative 3x minus 3 minus 2x is greater than negative 4x plus 8 minus 2. Combine your like terms on the same side. So negative 3 minus 2 would be negative 5. Okay, and then negative 4x plus 6. And then pick and choose what you want to move. So let's say I want to move my 5x over. That may not be what you choose to do, and that's okay. And then by default, that would move my 6 over. So we have negative 9 is greater than x. You could graph it like this if you read it backwards. X is less than negative 9. Or, if that bothers you, you can change it. Whatever direction the arrow, the sign is pointing to or away from the x, just make sure it's the same thing. So So right now it's pointing towards the x. So this would also be pointing towards the x. So this would be -9 in the middle. With an open circle at -9 going to the left. How would we write our interval notation?
-3 and on 9 brackets, 9 brackets.
Would it be a bracket?
Parentheses.
There we go. Okay. Any other questions we want to see go over? Had questions about? Oh, I still have to do 10. 9. Whatever the one was on the left. Okay, so go to the very last page. And we're going to do number 9. Here we have decimals, but that's not going to change anything. We still do it just like a normal problem. We have like terms we can combine. So if I added 2.2 to -3, we would get -0.8. And if we divided -0.8 on both sides, the sign is going to change directions. Someone divide that, tell me what you get. -2.2. So because this one's multiple choice, there's only one that has 2.2, so it has to be B. But ours doesn't look like the answer. If you switched it around, this is pointing towards the P, so again, towards the P. They are the same. Did you have it?
Will the number ever be in front of the letter?
Like this?
Yeah.
You could leave it like this, or do this, doesn't matter. You don't have to change it unless it makes you more comfortable to do that. This back page does not tell you to graph it or to do the interval notation, but I would say do it anyway for good practice. I did that. Come on. Maybe. Mouse. Okay. So I'm going to draw like a makeshift graph up here. If -2.2 was in the middle, I could just pick two numbers. It doesn't have to be like 5. It would be in between -2 and -3. So this would be a open circle going to the left. And if I were to write the interval notation, what would that be? Where would it start? Negative infinity. And then -2.2. And with a parenthesis. Any other questions, Noah? Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. So for the remainder of class, you can be working on practice stuff. Go back through these notes, practice whatever problems we didn't. You can work on the one compounding that's due on Friday, so you don't have to worry about it later on this stuff. Either or, just make sure you are practicing, and then Ms. Larson will be right back. But let us know if you have any questions